Hello, welcome to the latest edition of the OSU Sports Extra podcast, the Death of Bedlam edition. I'm Patrick Prince, joined by Kelly Hines, as always. So, Kelly, let's start with Bedlam. It wasn't exactly breaking news yesterday, but Brett McMurphy's story was interesting, and Mike Gundy's comments were interesting. It seems like Bedlam is dead, at least in the short term. Maybe the long term, we'll see. What kind of sense can you make of all this?
Yeah, it definitely was something I think that was just like brought up again. Like I think we all knew that Bedlam was going to be over. It just is a matter of when all that happens with OU's transition to a new conference. But kind of from OSU's perspective, I was a little bit surprised that Mike Gundy like had as much to say about it as he did. He always has things to say, but I kind of thought that it was because he'd been asked about it and talked about it so much during the spring and the summer and the preseason that it was just going to be like, I've said everything I'm going to say about that. But then instead he literally reaches into his pocket or pulls out a piece of paper and has all of these notes scribbled on it of things that he's like, these are things I want, this is what I want to say about this. And so it obviously was important enough for him to do that. I've never seen him do that. He usually is very good off the cuff, and he just was like, this is what I want to say, and I want to make sure I say it the way that I've planned it. So he put some thought into it, and I think, from his perspective it was OU and Texas, obviously they had all these discussions that went on for months, but Bedlam was not, that wasn't maybe a factor in anything that they decided. They decided to go to another conference, and OSU was not, maybe considered in any of that. And so they did that. And now something that has been perceived as a rivalry by many people is not going to be really an option, in part because of scheduling and contracts and all of those things. So I think he was just like, this is the last time I'm going to say anything about this, because we've talked it to death. I mean, it's been discussed so many times with him. The players have been asked about it. From OSU's side, not a lot of university administration like talking about it, because I think that you don't want to come out and say things too strongly, because situations change, and maybe down the road there'll be an opportunity for something to come up, and you wouldn't want to publicly say, yeah, no, we don't want to play them. This isn't important to us. Or, we're offended that they didn't want to be in a league with it. You wouldn't want to like put yourself in a corner that later on, you may feel differently about. Mike Gundy said there are no hard feelings, and that might be the case, but I think it is an awkward situation, probably for both sides. I see more of the OSU side because that's the beat that I cover. But I thought that Mike Gundy had some good points, and we knew this was coming. Like, this was one of the big takeaways of OU going to the SEC. You're not going to be in the same conference anymore. Conference schedules or non-conference schedules are mapped out so far in advance that how would they squeeze this game in? And it's just not that easy to facilitate. And maybe it'll be a possibility in other sports. It's a lot easier to schedule with those. But that'll probably come down to the individual coaches within those programs. So definitely was a big storyline yesterday, but I don't know that like we really got anything new from the report or from what was said. I know OU, Joe Castiglione had some comments that, it's kind of a he said, she said situation at this point, but that's not really surprising. That's how these things go. So nobody wants to look like the bad guy in this. But I really think that like Mike Gundy said, like, let's all move on from this. Like nothing is being accomplished. This is not a thing anymore. So we're all going to have to move on from it.
That's true, but I mean, they've been playing this game since 1904, and I totally get, let's move on and talk about other things, but it's not that easy. I mean, it's
Oh
not.
yeah, no, it's definitely not easy.
I mean, like if you're a fan, it's like, well, wait a minute, I want to wallow in this for just a little
yeah, and
while
the fans
longer.
are definitely still doing that. I mean,
Yes, they are.
they're very much still doing that. And you know, I've seen a lot of OU fans say, well, this wasn't a rivalry for us. Texas is our rival. We're going to have rivals in the SEC. And yeah, if that's the case, then I guess that's fine from their perspective. OSU, I think it's going to be harder in the new era of conference realignment to have those same rivalries. I know just from like covering Tulsa that it was always hard to identify, okay, so who are their rivals? I think maybe we're just in a different era of college football that rivalries aren't the same as what they used to be. So maybe that's part of it that we all have to accept. OSU will have I don't know. I wouldn't say them rivals, that they would be rivals, but OSU is going to have opponents in the new Big 12 or whatever happens down the road, that it's just going to be different. You're not going to have as much history and tradition and all of those things, but that's college football for you. It changes. And, a lot of the rivals of college football are able to have those non-conference games every year. But, for OSU, I mean, they're about to play Tulsa every year, and that's going to be a rivalry of sorts. It's a little bit different, but they've played each other a lot, and that could be a thing. So it is unfortunate, but it's just another thing that happens when college football is driven by money, and it just, you just have to accept that some things are going to be lost because of that.
Yeah, true that. So a number of years ago, when OU and OSU considered going to the Pac-12, and at that time, I thought it seemed to me essential that OSU stay paired with OU in conference realignment. I don't feel that way now. I feel like Oklahoma, the University of Oklahoma, because of their football success, casts such a large cloud, if you will, over our state. However, and rightfully so, they're great, but in the Gundy era, the OSU has really become a strong program. If you look at, the most wins or most bowl games, those stats that you see up here on TV, OSU pops up quite a bit. Your reaction to that? You agree or disagree with that?
I think that OU's success in the Big 12, the championships that OU has won in the conference, that made OU more equipped to go to a tougher conference. OSU, has had so much success under Mike Gundy, and he's done just absolutely incredible things with the program. To have 16 consecutive winning seasons, I mean, that's crazy. And bowl victories and national relevance and NFL talent, all of those things. It's just, I feel like for OU, it's like, well, we've dominated the Big 12. We're ready for something tougher, and they were ready to pursue that with Texas. OU and Texas considered themselves to be elite in the conference, which I think you could make a for sure argument for one of those. And then they buddied up, and that's where the alliance was. And I think with this round of conference realignment, OU was willing to split up from OSU because they viewed themselves as being more of a premier program, deserved or not. You can make that argument for sure, but I think that this round, it was not going to be that way. And I think that's fine. I think it doesn't have to be that way, because geography, as we're learning, means nothing in college football in terms of conferences now. So I think if you think that you can do better than the Big 12, I think from OSU's perspective, it's like they chose that, they're doing that. And I think OSU is in a really good position now. Maybe the best position it's ever been in. I mean, I think that's the big story with OSU right now, and it's kind of hard to quantify that, but I feel like that's why they're not all bent out of shape about what's going on. There's no panic. Oh, we got left out of this. Like, if I were an OSU administrator, I'd be like, no, we want to stay in the Big 12. Like, we can win championships in this league. We are going to be at the top every year or near the top in a lot of our programs. So I think that's why it's kind of like, okay, oh, you can do what they're going to do. We're going to do what we're going to do. And it doesn't have to be the same thing. I think both universities are in a great place with their administration and with their coaching staffs. And that's not just, obviously football drives a lot of that, but that's beyond football. So I think, them being in different conferences and not playing each other, yeah, it's unfortunate for the fans for sure. But I think it's probably the right decision for both of them. I don't know. It's obviously, you don't know how it's going to go, but as of right now, I feel like they're both in a really good spot. I think OU wants to see how it can compete in a conference like the SEC. I think all of us are interested to see how that's going to go. I think OSU absolutely can contend every year in a conference like what the Big 12 is going to be after OU and Texas leave.
Yeah. What's your favorite Bedlam memory? You've seen a number of Bedlam games.
Okay, so at one point I had gone to 15 Bedlam games in a row. That streak ended a couple years ago, but my favorite Bedlam memory is a Bedlam game that I did not attend. So in 2002, the night of the Bedlam game in Norman that OSU won, my dad and I had decided to go to an OSU basketball game that night because, obviously I had never been to a Bedlam football game at that point, and grew up 10 minutes from OU Stadium, and that was not going to be something that we could afford to attend. But whoever OSU played in basketball that night, those tickets were extremely affordable. So we decided to go to that basketball game. But we listened to the football game, obviously on the radio while we were driving up to Stillwater. So we heard, I guess it was, I don't know the timing of it, but we heard like the entire second half. We watched the first half on TV and we heard the second half. So we get up to the basketball game. So we listened, we heard OSU win. Obviously that was, really unexpected and dramatic, and just a great win for OSU. We get to the OSU basketball game and there weren't many people there because it was, Bedlam. And I wish I could remember who OSU played that night, but anyway, that's not really relevant to this story. There was just like everyone there, all of the OSU fans there were so excited because OSU won Bedlam, and that, at that time was pretty crazy. And so after the football team arrived back in Stillwater, they brought the football team to Gallagher-Iba and recognized the football team for that win. And that was a really cool thing to see. And I think that, to me, as someone who wasn't that close to any of it at that point, was just a sign of the program going in a really good direction. And there was just a lot of excitement around OSU football on that day because they beat OU, and that was so big, but it felt bigger than that. I don't really know how to explain that. That was obviously 20 years ago, and that was a lot has happened since then. But I will always remember that because, just as a kid, like you want to go to Bedlam games, you want to be at the big game that everyone is talking about. And I wasn't able to be at that game, but I was able to like be a tiny part of it, even though I wasn't really at all. So that's the one that I remember the most.
Let's talk about this year's team for a second.
Well, let's do that.
Yeah, we have a team actually playing now this year.
Just not this week.
Yeah, that's right. That's doing quite well. So, okay, it seems to me that the non-conference for OSU has gone pretty much exactly how you'd want it to go. They played well, had some concerns here, defense. Seems like they've addressed those in the coming weeks. Seems like they're in a good place injury-wise. As they prepare to go to Waco next week, do you have any concerns?
I think it's just probably the biggest concern is how is this team going to match up against, one of the best teams in the Big 12. Like, you've been able to have success. Here's George. Okay.
There's a cat sighting.
Okay.
They are so good at walking literally in front of the screen. They're not even in the back.
Censor that. Nobody wants to see George's butt. Sorry.
Yeah.
No one wants to see that. And now he's like, oh, you want to see what? Okay, I have some treats. Andy, could we get an endorsement from Temptations? Could we somehow facilitate that to where I don't have to spend my entire paycheck on these cat treats? Fortunately, I have some right here to give to him. Your question, oh yeah. So I think just probably I don't think there was a big concern. It's just maybe just seeing how this defense, particularly the back seven, does against a Big 12 offense. I think the defense has done some good things and has progressed well, from game 1 to game 2 to game 3. I think you're seeing everything you want to see. It's just still a matter of, okay, what is this going to look like when, no offense to the previous teams, the talent is going to be a lot different.
Yep.
And the offensive style is going to be different, and just all of those things. But I definitely feel like the schedule was how it was set up really helped OSU get a better feel for things. And having an open date this early in the season, you don't love that, but it does give you an extra week to prepare for Baylor to play Iowa State this week. Just not going to be just a super easy game. So I think from that standpoint, it's not necessarily a bad thing to have that open date this time of the year. But when you get only one and to have it after 3 games that didn't especially challenge you, you would prefer to probably have it a little bit later when you're beat up and you need more recovery time and that sort of thing. But OSU, from a health perspective, is in a really good spot. So really, it's just this is more about just preparing, looking back on the previous week minimally probably, and preparing extra for Baylor. The kitten biting my toes right now. So great.
That can't be fun. So they did what we all thought they would do against Pine Bluff, but anything or anybody particularly stand out to you in that game?
I'm pretty sure last week on this, I said I was most looking forward to seeing how Gunnar Gundy would play. So I have to give it up to myself a little bit, which I don't really.
He looked good, right? He looked good.
I thought he did really well. I obviously you're going to be nervous when it's the first substantial playing time of your career, and your last name is Gundy, and there are expectations that come with that, and you're wearing your dad's number, and it's just kind of a lot. And you've dreamed of this moment literally your whole life. And I thought he handled all of that really well. He's a redshirt freshman. He's his personality is more reserved, and he doesn't get super emotional, or at least showcase that. But he was super eager to be able to throw a pass in a game for the first time, and he didn't do that on the first drive, but on the second drive he did, and had a completion, had an incompletion, and then had a pass bounce off a receiver and wound up being an interception. And then he honestly settled in after that. He's like, okay, something bad happened. Not ideal, but and it wasn't his fault. And he settled in from there. And I thought he ran the offense extremely effectively, and took off and had some good runs, had some good passes. And it's not like he was out there with the first team offense. He was out there with all reserves, and those are guys he probably practices with, and that has that sort of connection. But it's not like he had the first team offensive line blocking for him and the first team wide receivers catching passes. I mean, he was out there with second, third team guys. And I thought it was a really good situation for him to get more comfortable. And that's what you want out of those games. Just more experience, and with more experience, that's a good thing. Not just for him, but for everyone everyone played in that game. So, but I thought that was a very positive experience for Gunnar, and whatever happens with his career moving forward, like that was such a cool thing for him to get to experience. And it's kind of unpredictable who they bring after games for interviews, but I was so glad that they brought him, because so often when players have these moments in games that I don't know, just like you don't always get to talk to them after that, just for whatever reason. If sometimes there are other players to bring, or I don't know. But for him to like be the center of attention in the post game and get to answer all these questions about it, I just think that adds to it for him. And like no one can ever take that away from you. Like you went out there, you threw touchdown passes. That was something you always dreamed of doing. And regardless of where your career goes, which I think he has a ton of potential, and I think he will be the starter at some point. But I just thought that was a really, I love the feel good things with college football, and that way you kind of forget that it's just all about money and those things. So it's not all about money, but you know what I'm saying. I like those storylines that maybe it's not super central to this season, but when you're playing a team that you beat by a margin like that, I just like to have kind of just hold on to like one cool thing that happened in this game, instead of like, oh, one team was really good and the other team wasn't as good. I don't know. So that was really the biggest thing I took from that.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. You can check us out on Google, Apple, or Spotify. Download us for free. Hope you'll check us out. Kelly, enjoy a rare Saturday off, and we'll talk next week.
Okay, sounds good.